This is Jay-Z.
And that's Daniel.
And this is Just My DIY.
Today we're going to show you how we upcycled my late grandmother's old display cabinet into chic and modern storage with doors.
And in true Jay-Z fashion, these doors needed to be aesthetically pleasing and otherwise intricately detailed.
So detailed, in fact, that it took us about a month to put this together, but I say it was worth it, and I'm super stoked.
And what she says goes.
I like the way he thinks. Well, there's a lot for us to do that we're going to show you. Let's go ahead and get started. This is what we're starting with, complete with the 60s, 70s era patina of dust collection on it. So the first thing we're going to do is clean all this off with like water and vinegar, and then go around and fix as many of the dents and dings as we can in the wood and the veneer.
And we'll take this shelf and remove it for it is warped. And then we need to replace some legs on it because somebody stole them for the 1970s record cabinet project.
Weird. I wonder who did that.
Whoever did it was a genius. It must have been me.
Oh, that was definitely me. That was definitely mine. Okay, let's get to fixing this thing. First, the hardware comes off, and then the shelf. Once we got it clean, started to give it a good sand so the paint would stick, and unfortunately, we discovered that the top was warped too.
Safety first.
A couple little taps, top came right off. I filled in the cracks with some wood filler, and then it was back to sanding. Lots of sanding. I tried to make the rest of the top frame straight, but unfortunately, it's a no-go. So it came off too. Building the new top was actually pretty easy. Just cut some 2x2s at 45-degree angles and made sure I was matching up to the sides of the old frame. After that, use a nice little tape trick to do the glue up where you put painter's tape under the edges of each of the corners and then drop in the glue. As usual, we're using our super glue wood glue combo to give that immediate hold from the super glue and then the tighter bond overall from the wood glue. After that, it was time to cut the top out of a thin piece of wood. Once the top was cut, it was time to do its glue up, again using a little bit of a wood glue super glue combo, then setting it in some clamps. I gave it a quick sand and then had to cut the rabbet with a router. I used 2 passes because the rabbet needed to be quite deep for the backboard to sit fully in. To cut the shelf, I used the old shelf as a guide, cut it down to size, and then used the multi-tool, which is now my favorite, to cut out the corners to ensure that it fit inside the frame that was already inside the cabinet. A little bit of sanding, drilling the holes, and then it was time to put the shelf and the top back on the unit. While I was working on all this, Daniel was working on the legs.
First, we needed to cut them to length. And for lack of more appropriate tools, we used a scroll saw to cut the bevel of the legs.
Normally you'd use a bandsaw for this, but this is what we have and we made it work.
And work.
And work.
Okay. Then we sanded. Don't you love sanding? And so we used 2x4s to make a base frame, using 45s and tapers in to fit the legs that we built with bevels, and a pocket hole jig to fix them all up. But it is important. Everyone should take time for a quick snack break.
I mean, you gotta energize while you're building, right?
Even if it's not quick.
No.
I ain't on the clock, man.
And then back to the
Pocket hole jig. Find it all up. And if you are using a pocket hole jig, it is important that you also pocket hole from the top in order to secure the legs strongly instead of letting them wobble.
On the bottom, we used 3 pocket holes per leg to secure them, and then had 2 pocket holes per leg on the top. We used a compact router in order to shape the edge back a little on the legs so it would appear that there was a gap between the legs and the base of the cabinet. Then we pre-drilled some holes, drove some screws in, and the legs were officially attached to the cabinet. Now it is time for the fun part.
And if by fun you mean in a true Jay-Z fashion, things need to be intricate and complicated so they're going to be aesthetically pleasing.
You mean epic and amazing?
Yes.
Yes, so we have drawn out one of the doors here, and as you can see, it has lots of lines, and that's what we're going to do with
These things. We're going to make lots of lines with these things.
and these and routers. Ah!
You did hurt yourself, didn't you? You're supposed to fake that.
Get started!
When making the doors, having a good piece of wood is vital. You need something that is not warped in order to make a door that will work right.
And just as I started to sand, disaster struck. Timeout. Had to call a quick timeout because we shattered one of our lights. Luckily, we had some extra bulbs on hand and got back in business fairly quickly. It was back to sanding the doors down. Then, the moment of truth. Do they fit? Well, they probably do if you set them on the cabinet correctly. Why am I not doing this right? Took a few minutes to make sure that everything lined up. Then it was time to drill out the holes for the hinges.
We begin by drawing the pattern out on the first door and lay the wood out one piece at a time.
So we're basically trying to create a diamond in the middle, but we couldn't have the boards meet on a 45 just because we would be routing them vertically and didn't want to have a seam in the middle. So we cut triangles to attach on the ends of the boards to fully create our diamond. We knew we'd be able to route through that seam when we started to do the design.
When you know you have them in the exact place where you want them, you glue them down. That way they can never move again. And clamp them down so they'll never move again. And then do the other side. And now we route. We set up a 2x4 for a straight line and use something along the lines of a 3/4 inch measurement with a 1/4 inch router bit. And repeat, and repeat, and repeat.
You'll notice that Daniel did his first line on that seam we were talking about a little bit earlier. That was to ensure that the measurement hit exactly where it needed to be.
And then the bit slid out and dug into our beautiful woodwork. To prevent this from happening again, we clean the collet and the bit. We put the router into its plunge base and continued on our merry way, hoping that this didn't happen again.
We also did 2 shallower passes rather than the 1 deep pass that we were doing.
True story.
Once we got through the first board, when I say we, I mean Daniel. Once Daniel got through the first board, I took over the sanding and the patching of the errant routing on a couple of lines, while Daniel went to work doing a beautiful job on the second board.
Practice makes perfect.
Once we got done with all that, it was time to lay out the slats. You'll notice that the diamond is a little bit thicker than the slats on the outside, and that's an intentional part of the design. Because of that, we didn't want to route the outside. We used 1/4" slats and cut them to size, and then Daniel
used some super glue wood glue combo method in order to adhere them, using more super glue closer to the edges because here we are sanding them. Don't they look amazing? And you know what looks more amazing?
Hi! I am so excited with how these have turned out so far.
Me too.
So now we need to paint these, paint the cabinet, and what else?
And hardware.
Hardware, that's right. So we're gonna make some really cool diamond handles on here, and then just attaching the hinges. You missed.
It's hard to see.
The painting's pretty straightforward, so we're going to speed through this. But I use a primer and then a high performance enamel and glossy black on top of that. For the inside, using an oil-based paint that obviously you can see I'm hand painting on. Decided to go with oil-based paints because some of this old wood I thought might swell with a latex or water-based paint. I made sure to tape everything up before sanding and applying second coats where needed on the outside to take care of any drips. Another coat on the inside, but you didn't have to see that to know what that looks like. We did the same thing on the doors, a layer of primer, then a couple of layers of the high performance epoxy. Then it was time for the hinges. We cut 2 triangles for each set. We did 2 sets because we weren't quite sure what design we wanted to go with. We painted the back sides white and then created a block that we pre-drilled some holes into so we could attach the bolts that would ultimately attach the handles to the doors. Spray painted those black and drove the bolts right through those. Once those were all set up, it was time to attach those to the triangles, which I probably could have been a little more precise here, but time was of the essence. Glued those down using, you guessed it, super glue wood glue. We're actually using photo printouts for the design on the handles, and you'll see the 2 sets here. So I laid the handles on top of those, outlined them, and then used an X-Acto knife to cut them exactly to size. I did this for both sets before busting out the spray adhesive. Put on the spray adhesive, let it wait for a second, and then applied the cutouts to the tops, making sure no adhesive stuck to the top, and did the same thing on the second set. After they dried, we did a little bit of cleanup with an X-Acto knife, making sure all the edges are nice and pretty. Then it was inside to cover them in resin.
We set it up on a flat board and got everything as level as possible, and did a flood pour of resin over the top of it, making sure to touch the sides to make everything shiny.
Yep, and we babysat the drips for a little bit so we'd have less to deal with the next day. Once everything was dry, we were able to compare the handles and see which ones we liked best, and well, we both agreed that the black and white ones were the winners.
So we drill the holes for the handles, making them slightly oversized, so we have a little wiggle room. And to help secure the doors while they were closed, we added some magnet grips.
Yep, then it was time to attach the hinges. The doors may not have closed well at first, but after working with the adjustment screws, We finally got them to close nice and easy. We put in the handles, and of course it turned out that the bolts hit the middle shelf.
We had to take the quick tool, the universal, what?
Multi-tool.
And go until it was off. It was really loud.
And just like that,
We are closing the doors on this project.
yes we are. After 4 long weeks, we are finally done. And I don't know about you, but I think it was worth it. I mean, lessons learned, new skills.
We had fun.
We had fun, indeed. So we hope you enjoyed watching this as much as we enjoyed making it.
So if you liked what you saw, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, the like button, ring the bell, and check out our list of materials down below.
Yes, if you're not watching this on our website, head over to justmydiy.com for more tips, tutorials, backstories, and more. Thanks for joining us.